Welcome, my students of the YouTube channel. And if you're not my student and just a watcher of YouTube, hello. So today here we are going to talk about kind of like what we used to read, um, like chords and scales and different kinds of things to actually learn how to play the guitar, right? You see people on the guitar doing all sorts of crazy stuff on the neck. And this is today going to give you guys the how they actually do it, right? It's really fairly simple and straightforward to actually read these, but I'll go over it. If it doesn't make sense, don't worry. So here we have an example of a tablature. So a tablature is basically like the way how you would read music on a guitar if you want to get playing like immediately, right? Here we have numbers on a line. So the line actually represents the string of the guitar, just like this, right? So the bottom line, as you can see, we have E, A, D, G, B, E. We remember the names of the strings, right? Just these strings, all of them on the guitar, right? So here we have, we see numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They actually represent the frets on a guitar, right? Tablature is actually an exclusive way of reading music, only for instruments that have frets. Like ukuleles, bass, guitar, lots of different instruments, but they have to have frets. I know some other instruments like violins, cellos, they don't have frets. Then you're gonna have to use the other system of music, which I find a lot harder. The partituras in español lo llamamos, but in English I think the music, the sheet music that you would read, a lot harder. This is easier. For example, if I were to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all this right here on the tablature, it would literally just look like this. You're just going up, right? So whatever the number on the line represents, that's where you're putting your finger. I'm not going to talk about that too much. Today we want to talk about the other way of reading music, which is actually easier. I hope it's easier. Guitar chord diagrams. This is a really well-detailed version of a guitar chord diagram. You're never going to see it like this. They're actually going to look more like this, right? And this is another way, another exclusive, another exclusive offer given to you by instruments that have frets. So this has to be specific. When we talk about this, it has to be guitar, because there's ukulele diagrams. It'll be obvious because there'll be only 4 strings. Mandolin diagrams, banjo diagrams, any instrument that has frets and strings, right? This one's going to be specifically called the guitar, because this is what I have in my hands, and this is exactly how you would, these are some examples of what they would look like. Now, unlike the tablature, right? So you can learn how to play these, what we call chords, using a tablature. It's just going to look a little weird, right? We're going to have like numbers all in a line like this. It's gonna look, trust me, this way is gonna be a lot easier to do it. This way, you may see sometimes chords written out on tablature. In my opinion, it's you can't really see the shape. So my reason why I like these a lot more for learning chords rather than this, because this, it not only shows you where to put your finger, but you can see the shape. For example, this kind of looks like a line, but let's look at how I actually put my fingers on the fret. So it's going to look like this. First finger on the first fret of the B string. Second finger on the second fret of the D string. And third on the A string, third fret. A string, third fret. And then all together, we see this X means we don't play. Well, I'll talk about this a little bit, but I'm going to show you how it sounds. And, you know, your strumming hand, you're just going down or up. You know, and then my fingers kind of look like a line, kind of look like a little bit of stairs, right? So I want to talk about chords. I want to think about shapes. I don't like to think about chords as like, oh, you know, this is how you do it. Well, actually, no, that's exactly how I want you to think about it. But I want you to think about when you look at chords, don't try to memorize where to put your fingers. Yes, that's important too, right? Don't memorize. The first step is actually just looking at the shape. This one looks like a kind of like a weird diagonal line. And that's exactly how it's going to look like on your fingers on the fret. Something like this. For example, like a D7, I don't want you to think of it like as that's where you put your fingers. I want you to think of it as a shape. That's the shape of it, right? Kind of looks like a weird upside down, backwards triangle. And actually it looks like this, right? You know, you create this weird little triangle looking thing, you know. So, and it sounds kind of like this, right? So remember, starting from the D string, right? It's a really good chord. And D7, pairing D7 with a G major. That's another last example here. They sound really good back to back, but we'll get into that in another video of why it sounds good. Second finger, first finger. This one's kind of weird. I like to think of this one as like a weird little upside down G. You can think of this as actually a weird upside down D. This one doesn't really look like a C. I used to like thinking about them as like the shape of the letter. Not all of them work that way though, unfortunately. But this one is how it would sound like, right? It would look like a weird shape where these two fingers are up and down like that, and this one goes backwards. So you use these diagrams to help you actually know how to play. For example, if I wanted to see a C, then a D7, and then a G. Sounds really great. And all you need to do is learn how to just read these kinds of diagrams. Now let's take it a little slower, right? Let's go back. So a diagram just is fancy words for picture. So this is just a picture of where to put your fingers on a guitar. Specifically right here, right? This, if you see like a really dark line, like this, really dark, really thick, that's usually this part, the nut of the guitar. Hence the name right here, nut. You're gonna see it right here, nut. And the lines that go after that is gonna be the actual frets on a guitar. They would be these parts, right? This is what actually changes the sound of the string. I make the string shorter, and it makes a really high sound or long open like that. So that the frets actually change the sound. The dots obviously is where you put your finger. Now sometimes you're gonna see them with numbers. All of these have numbers, but you're sometimes never gonna see that though. You're gonna see so this is, like I said, you're never gonna see a chord diagram look like this. This is one that I pulled off somewhere on the internet, and it's really well detailed. Finger placements, fretbar, nut, that what I just went over. But normally, most of the times, they won't look like that. Even something like this one too, down here, won't look like that. Some chords won't even have the numbers. These numbers actually represent your fingers. So first finger, second finger, third finger, or fourth finger, right? They also have other names: index, middle, ring, and pinky. But I like to use numbers too, because it's just easier to put a number there. But like I said, sometimes they won't even have a number. Sometimes it'll just be like a straight point, right? And you kind of have to figure out, that's when I say you can figure out how to do your own chord, your own style. You don't have to necessarily use, well, it's easier to use these fingers, but you don't have to use them if you don't. For example, like a good example of this would be a G chord. I want all my students to be like doing that. But recently I learned that from a C chord, going to a G, it's really hard to go fast. So sometimes I actually see some of my students go like this. I'm not really good at using that technique. I do the other way better, but the points really are ambiguous. It's just fancy words for meaning that it can mean a couple of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be done that certain way, but the numbers help. And in our diagrams, we have numbers here, which is nice. Now you're gonna also notice that we have X's. Not all of them have X's, and some zeros. So if we kind of look over here, so if we think of X meaning don't play, exactly what it says right here, mute, open string, don't play. So it would just be like this. So for example, if I do this C major chord, I'm not gonna play this E string. I'm not playing this E string. I'm actually gonna start from the A string going down. And same thing, if I want to strum up, I'm gonna strum up. I'm gonna try my best to avoid that E string. A good technique is when you have your C chord like this, you can actually use this finger to mute that string. Hence the reason why they call it mute, right? That's that sound. So you can kind of hear it, but it's not, you're not letting it play. You're just, you see, you don't really hear that low E. For example, another good example is here, D7. We have two X's. So that one, you're just, there's, you can do the same trick right here like that, kind of mute the string. But I want you to really, actually, no, you can't, because you actually have to play that D string. So this one's one of those ones where you're actually your right hand has to be, this is more of a right hand exercise than it is a left hand, right? Because you're gonna really want to make sure you play from the D string going down. If you accidentally hit the A string or E string, it's not the end of the world, but it's not right. You know, it's not necessarily correct, but, you know, it's music. There's no right or wrong answers. I'm not going to get mad at you for, hey, no, don't hit those. But, yeah. And so the zeros means that they're open, like this. So if I just strum the strings on a guitar like that, it would be, you would just see all zeros right up here on top of the nut, because that's technically where 0 fret would be. So just to review again, chords is what makes a guitar sound really cool. And it's how to play music immediately and sound really cool. Even though you're not that good, if you just know a couple of chords, you will sound amazing to the average person. And remember that this is necessarily just a picture of the first position. These first 3 frets is all the chords, sometimes 4, but mostly 3. It's going to be all of these, all your actions happening here. Now, if you see some numbers here, these obviously mean the fret numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here they're in Roman numeral, which, you know, you don't necessarily have to read, but that's what that means, 1, 2, 3. And same thing here. Now, there will be chord diagrams when we get into future chords, where you'll actually see, like, for example, the first fret here will be like a number 5 or a number 6. That just means you're taking the same shape and you're moving it up here. An example of that would be a bar chord. Not really going to get into those today, but I do want to let you know that sometimes there will be a number here. Sometimes there won't be. But if there's a number here, it'll be like, you know, like, for example, these ones have numbers because I'm explaining to you guys, if you don't know how to read a chord chart, But once you get into more advanced chords that actually move up and down the neck, you're going to see some different numbers here. That's going to be where the number of fret. So it's kind of like a lot of math. It's a lot of counting, I know. It's guitar. Why are we doing so much math? This is a math class. Well, there's a little bit of math. You don't need a lot of math. You just need a little bit, right? And last but not leastly, of course, oh, and obviously these are the strings. I don't know if I got to that part, but yeah, these are the strings. For example, first string, this would be high E, and it would go high E, B, G, D, A, and low E. So from right to left, it's going to be the small string to the big string. So exactly how you see right here. So this is exactly how it's laid out. So it's important to memorize the name of the strings. And so when you see this, you're actually looking at the guitar exactly like facing towards you like this. So hopefully there's no confusion there. Hopefully I explained that really good. And now, time for the finale. The actual letter that you see there is going to be the chord name, right? You know, if you don't see a chord name, that's crazy, because they mostly have chord names. So, for example, all of these are majors except for this one. This one's a 7. Ooh, a 7. To be fair with you, the full name of this is actually called a D dominant 7, but no one ever says dominant. They just say 7. And then sometimes you'll see like a little lowercase m. That would mean a minor. So now we get into different kinds of chords. So these are what we call like basic chords. I even consider a D7 to be kind of basic, even though it's, you know, not a major or minor. If we remember correctly, major is happy sounding, you know, something like happy. And then minor would be more like sad sounding, right? And then a 7, it just sounds weird. Sounds kind of old school. So that's then there's of course a lot of different other kinds of chords. So yeah, we'll talk about tablature more in the next time, and hopefully that helps you to read the chords a lot better.